think this is more powerful than a gun. Feels amazing. Testing the mic, 1, 2. Hello? Oh man, there's so much to talk about for this one. This is a heavy one. There's this concept that I think about a lot. If we minorities don't tell our stories, someone with an agenda will. What do I mean by that? Okay, everyone has stories, every individual and every community. And us as minorities, be black, white, not white. Whites are the minority. Whether you're black, whether you're Asian, whether you're Arab, whether you're Muslim. I think as Muslims, our story has been, for a long time, has been controlled by people with an agenda. Look at the history of films and photographs and stories that are told about us. Find out who they're told by and how they're told. And when you do that, I think it's a bit scary. I think it's a bit strange actually. If we were to do the same thing, we'd be called anti-Semitic, for example, even though we are also from Shem. So if we look at Hollywood, for example, and Hollywood isn't this shallow, easy to go to reference, they are one of the biggest perpetrators in the distortion of our story as Muslims. We can look at a movie like Aladdin. At the start of the film, for example, the song that's being sung, and when they speak about the Middle East, they call it barbaric. And Jack Shaheen goes into this. He's written and produced a whole documentary and articles and books called Real Bad Arabs with a double E. And in that, he analyzes about 1,000 films with Arabs in it. And he looks at how the Arabs are portrayed and depicted. And his findings are quite scary. He says over 90% of them, Arabs were depicted in a negative way. You have to understand, right? Arabs aren't making this film. Muslims aren't the ones making these films, yet they're about Muslims. A lot of people will say that 9/11 is where that narrative that a Muslim is a terrorist began. And I am telling you, it is way before that. Think about it. When there's close to 1,000 films depicting you as a terrorist, when something like that actually happens, it's very easy to sell that story. My point is though, is that we as Muslims in this generation, with something like this, we can change that narrative. And I urge that we do change that narrative. I urge that we start writing, that we start filming, that we start taking photographs, that we start telling our stories. We're three-dimensional, and to destroy this one-dimensional image. For a project that I did recently, I went onto a news website here in Australia, and I looked in their video section, and all I did was I typed in Muslim, and I'm telling you, man, I scrolled for about an hour. Like, when it says load more at the bottom, I loaded more. I kept loading, kept doing that. I kept scrolling because I was trying to look for news broadcasts that were made, around 2001, 2002, 2003 for my project. And on that website, it doesn't have what's it called? Like a filter, a sort by option. It's automatically sorted by date, and you have to keep scrolling to go back as far as you can. And the furthest point that I could go back was around, I think 2013, but that last 6-7 years, from now until 2013, the majority of the stories were about terrorism. The word Muslim became synonymous with the word terrorist. Not because we're terrorists, but because that's the story that's being pushed. So my point again is, if we as minorities don't tell our own stories, someone else will. And we can't trust that someone else has an agenda or not. Most likely, from what we've seen, they've got an agenda. This is your weapon. We need to start using it. Hey, wow, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to know your thoughts, so feel free to reach out either in the comments or in my DMs. So I know I touched on a few big concepts in this video and I didn't really go into depth, but I'll be making more in the future and I'll unpack a lot of them inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.